Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Tapping into the New Talent Revolution. First of all, can I say congratulations for making the right choice this morning for your session. Clearly, you've read what Jeremy Corbyn is going to say, so I'm really pleased. It's great to have you all here. I'm Alice Webb. I'm Director of BBC Children's, which means that I look after everything the BBC does for children. I also am Director of BBC North, so that small endeavour at Media City is also something I look after for us just outside Manchester. You've got a really great session over the next hour, tapping into the new talent generation, an incredibly important topic for all of us. We're going to be looking about what's the landscape for online talent look like, what makes people successful online, and can you automatically transfer that to TV? How do you bring some of the success that some of our, well, all of our panellists have been helping to or creating online? How do you bring that to TV? And some words of advice from our talented panellist, and some future gazing for you here. So that's what we're going to do. There's a voice for you in this, please, because these panels are much better when there's a bit more of engagement. Please do submit questions on the app. I know the app was a bit emotional yesterday. I'm reliably informed it had a good night's sleep, and it will be taking your questions this morning, and they will come through to here. If not, then we will go very non-digital, and you'll just shout your questions at us, and we'll answer those. There's also a poll as well, because I think these panels, you know, if we can actually help move festivals like Edinburgh on when we have these panels, that's so much the better. There's a real question on the poll, which I think is on the screen here. So should this TV festival be showcasing the best of online talent, yes or no, in the future? It's a TV festival, question mark. Do we look wide enough around? So please let us know what you think on that panel. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so right, why are we doing this session? It's quite obvious, because we and TV are facing a massive, massive challenge with how do we connect with the under-25s and stay relevant. You've heard about them, talked about Generation Z, whatever you want to call them. They are an incredibly important part of our audience space. Which is why I'm so delighted to welcome probably one of the best qualified panels you're going to see here in Edinburgh. Let me quickly introduce you to them. The first person probably needs little introduction, DanTDM. He is one of the top YouTube stars from this country, collaborating a lot with YouTube Red, now YouTube Premium, and of course the BBC. 20 million YouTube subscribers, millions more on Twitter and Instagram. In 6 years, Dan, you have racked up a mere 13 billion views on YouTube, and indeed in June alone that was over 200 million views on YouTube as well. It's vast. Thanks. Go on, Dan. Moving swiftly on, Grace Victory is an alternative lifestyle vlogger who's already made the break into professional TV, if that's what you want to call it. Over 30 million YouTube views in 7 years. And the thing that's, you know, absolutely for people like Grace is her engagement with her fan base on YouTube is much higher than the average, more than 3 times the average for that platform. Incredibly loyal following, and she's building an amazing career and branching out, making documentaries on BBC Three on clean eating and the secrets of puppy trade, and much, much more. Thank you, Grace, for joining us this morning. You are a very polite audience as well. Thank you for that. Jodie Smith is Creative Director of Studio 71 UK and running the development and production of shows for TV, digital platforms and podcasts as well. Many of you will know Jodie. He was previously commissioning editor at Channel 4, where he played, you know, a significant role in the launch of All 4's original short form strategy. And for those of you, if you're not so familiar, Studio 71 is a worldwide talent network with over 1,300 creatives, and they, between them, achieve 8 billion views online per month. I fear we're going to have some big numbers here between us, but that's what Studio 71, so Jodie definitely knows his stuff. Louise Thornton is from BBC Scotland, so she is our commissioning executive for digital, social and youth, co-creator of the RTS winning content stream The Social. If you haven't checked it out, have a look at it, it's rather brilliant. Attracts over 4 million views a week. And Louise brings a different perspective, because very much how how do you open up, you know, quite an established traditional broadcast like the BBC to new voices in a new way? And now in her role, she is charged with finding new talent to come onto the new BBC Scotland TV channel opening next year. And Jay Lalonde on the end there is Vice President of Content and Head of Studio at multi-platform company Whistle Sports in New York. Jay decides what's in their content pipeline and where and how it's going to be delivered worldwide. He was previously exec producer at Mashable, responsible for programming and content development, and has worked with networks such as Turner, Nat Geo, NBCU. So a real pedigree of crossing over and making the most of both professional TV and online as well. So a massively talented panel. I'm keen to press on, which is why I'm racing through this first bit, because there's so much for us to talk about. Before we do that, let's have a quick look at the landscape of what's going on online. So it's absolutely clear that online talent like Dan and Grace are giving young audiences something they are not getting from TV. Look at the stats behind me. 60% of teenagers say they'd rather watch 10 hours of YouTube than 10 hours of TV. 20% of that, the under 25s, Generation Z, there think of influencers, online influencers, as friends. And those last two bullet points, I think, are very telling. In June of this year, there were 2,500 UK-based influencers who were achieving more than 1 million views in June. And on TV, there are 1,000 TV shows in that same month. You just look at the ratios there, it's quite interesting. Whatever's going on, so if you love it or loathe it, you can't ignore it. There is a rich vein of talent online, and how do we tap into it? Dan, I'm going to come to you first. There are about 1.2 million creators who classify themselves as in the gaming space on YouTube. What makes you stand out? Tell us a bit about you and your story.
I think I've always loved gaming since I was young, and also making videos, and also storytelling as well. So creating characters, creating compelling stories. And I think I was one of the first to combine the world of gaming and the world of storytelling and putting them together. More specifically in a game called Minecraft, I created these almost like Saturday morning cartoon style videos that gained massive popularity. The characters can carry their own, like I wrote a book that was literally about the character and he carried it by himself. It's just, I've just created this massive world inside video games. I can only really compare it to a Saturday morning cartoon show.
Mm-hmm. And did it just happen?
That was my first idea that kind of went viral, I guess. But I've always made videos in that game. That was just the one idea that really made my channel explode. And
so the thing that makes you stand out, because there are so many of them, any one thing in particular?
I would say it's the storytelling, the relatability to the characters, and just having that extra element to just watching gameplay. Because there's a lot of people that make video gaming content that are either really good at the game or just have great personalities, and I think I bring not necessarily the skill of the video game, but more of what I can create using video games. I think that's my USP.
Great, great. Grace, what about you? From your perspective, what's making you stand out from the crowd?
I feel like it's... When I first started, there was no one that looked like me, so I had an advantage with that. A lot of the fashion and beauty and lifestyle bloggers are white and middle class. So when I first started, I already stuck out because like where I speak, where I look, whatever. But I think now it's because I'm very relatable, and I've just remained like myself, I guess. And also people have seen me grow. I think I asked on Instagram ages ago, like, why do people follow me? And everyone just said, oh, because we like you. And that was literally it. And I think as I offer a different alternative to living, a lot of women struggle with like body image and insecurities around their periods or whatever. And because I'm so vocal about what women go through, you know, I do videos on like boobs, and they love it because they're like, this is what I want to hear, because I'm struggling with this, or I can't talk to my mum about this, or school. And I think that I'm like a middleman for a lot of them in terms of like education around sex and things like that. So that's why I think it works, and I'm just a nice person.
There you go. We knew that already, but what's also really great is to understand that thing about actually you're a bit like me. I can see myself in you and you in me type thing.
Yeah, exactly that.
So Jodie, you work with loads and loads of different kinds of talent. Do you think that the TV world has got a bit of an outdated view or on perception of what talent's out there online?
I think YouTubers and TV got off to kind of a rough start. I think when that first kind of wave, that first generation of vloggers and storytellers on YouTube, they were kind of introduced as almost like, we're the end of TV, we're the anti-TV, we'll steal your viewers, we're going to dominate TV, and that never really happened. And I think also a slightly and quite rightly smug view from a lot of broadcasters and producers looking at vloggers and thinking that what you do is so different to what happens on TV and the stories we tell on TV. There's no real correlation there. And I think there's a few failed attempts of taking someone with a big following from YouTube and plonking them on the TV in a presenter role where they didn't have like creative control of the project like they do on their own channel, and thinking you could somehow take someone with 10 million subscribers and punt those views over to TV. And there's never really been a history of that happening. So I think what we've kind of learned and what we're doing, I think it's starting to happen as an industry, and certainly at Studio 71 we're not looking for people with high volumes of viewers online. It's people who are experts or storytellers or have a kind of background in something that is a universal topic that can translate to TV. So it's thinking about how can we give them a different creative output and move them to TV or podcasts or whatever that thing is, and what is the best sort of format for them.
Great, okay, thank you. Louise, BBC Scotland, you're starting with a bit of a blank canvas with the new channel there. What kind of talent are you looking to bring to this channel that your audience can't find already?
I think it's really interesting in Scotland because this new channel is offering us an opportunity to do content that we never really made before. You know, we're part of a big organisation within the BBC, but getting kind of like Scottish voices, and particularly young Scottish diverse voices, has been a challenge. So in a way, that's a bit of a gift for a commissioner, because that's the first thing I start with. I think, okay, we've got such a broad talent base in Scotland that find it really hard to get into the media, but just like these guys, they've now got the tools and the skills and the passion to be able to do it themselves, so they'll be creating stuff on YouTube and Instagram and everything. So now we have a framework within BBC Scotland where we can start to work with those people and actually kind of say, well, let's look at, just like Jodie said, let's look at what you're actually passionate about, what you care about, because that's where, you know, the authenticity comes from, and that's where the connection with the audience comes from. And that gives us a great starting point of being able to make really brilliant content for a linear channel, but actually more importantly for me, content that might go out as, you know, 30 minutes on a TV channel, but actually draws an audience to iPlayer, draws an audience that can form a community, that can have a discussion on social media around about a topic. And we actually start to kind of say to younger audience in Scotland, just like Grace said, you know, this is somebody that looks like me and sounds like me, and we can actually start forming a connection with them.
So we're already seeing quite a few themes of kind of authenticity, storytelling, a bit more like me. Jay, talking about kind of, well, not specifically like me, but Whistle Sports is working with sports broadcasters to keep that young male audience in particular. What key traits are coming through with the kind of talent that works best for that?
In general, I think we provide a safe environment for specifically young males to participate in the content. Makes it more shareable. We do that through partners with the F2 Freestylers or Dude Perfect, and it's less about who won the game or analyzing what player did what, and it's more about a more shareable experience online where we're seeing specifically young males who are participating in the conversation or even driving the conversation around sports or sports culture that doesn't involve stats or anything like that. So we're finding a pretty open opportunity for us to be able to drive that conversation online.
And is that because you think, though, that the people who are watching it, well, or participating, you put them into mainstream TV broadcast positions? Is that they're kind of thinking, well, that could be me, I could be there, I could be participating in that commentary. In fact, I am, because I'm...
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of the sports, traditional sports broadcasters have frankly failed to cultivate a young audience. And so we believe that there's a position for us to come in and drive that audience. We're not only talking with these creators who are telling sports or young male stories, but we're offering them an opportunity to play outside of just the social confines, right? And so a lot of the sports, the traditional sports networks are starting to come to us, and we'll have conversations about how to tell more modern stories with more relevant talent.
Excellent. Well, you've got a real sense of some of the diversity and the range that's already out there that's broken from, you know, made that transition. Let's have a look. We've got a VT now just to have a look at some of those in practice. Excellent. There you go, just a small snippet. Dan, coming to you next. I guess one of the questions we've looked at, you know, you and Grace and others are incredibly successful. You were named the highest earning YouTuber in 2017. What's your motivation to get into mainstream TV? Why bother?
My personal motivation would be to create something that I can't already create. So the opportunity to make something that by myself I wouldn't be able to do, or to access a different audience that I already have. That would be my main motivation.
And give us a bit more on that. What kinds of things are you saying actually? Because you've got direct access to the audience, which is absolutely vast. You've got a following. What kinds of things can't you do already?
I mean, I guess I could do them already. So I could hire my own camera team and stuff like that. But I guess moving over to TV, it's just having, I guess, predominantly that new audience, potentially a new audience on TV. For example, if I stepped into the world of documentary, stuff like that, I would benefit from creatively being more involved in creating something completely different to what I normally do, and also when it goes out, have access to an audience that I wouldn't normally be able to access on YouTube.
And do you think that you'd make different kind of content? I mean, you've talked about, you mentioned documentaries there, but do you think there's a match between content and platform, or content form and platform, or do you think actually it's much more freeform than that?
Do you mean making gaming content on TV?
Yeah, or documentaries on YouTube, you know, is it actually part of the motivation is actually, no, it's like, that's a better fit for that platform, I could see that working well there, or is it not as...
Yeah, possibly. I guess it goes back to the audience as well, because there'll be generally an older audience on TV, so if I wanted to reach and grow even more, that's the way I would do it, because I have the growth already on YouTube and that's still going with that demographic. So if I wanted to then move that to a different demographic, that would be the perfect way to do it.
Interesting. So you've already got the young, which many people in this room are looking for, and you'd like some of what they've got. There's a great... Yeah. Grace, what about you? What draws you into that TV world?
Well, I'm not... I think people think every YouTuber is like really creative. I'm not creative. People just like looking at me and hearing me speak. So I make videos of like what I bought from ASOS, or talking about tampons. So it's very easy for me to sit down and have that engagement, because what I talk about is just so shocking. So with TV, it's more like making stuff that I have no idea what I'm doing. I have to make a documentary. I know how to present and engage with people and like touch people's hearts, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know how to use a camera properly. And people think that every YouTuber can. And that, for me, that's not what it's about. So my first doc, Clean Eating Dirty Secrets, got 1.3 million views. My channel doesn't get that, so it's very different for me. I think that my making a documentary was quite shocking, because I was just like, you're just an influencer. And obviously I'm good on camera, presenting, and I got the views. So I think for me, it's a bit different to Dan. Like, I'm not creative. But when I have a team around me, that's when I can be like, this is the idea that I have, but I need a cameraman to execute that. Like, how do I make this happen? And that is why I want to do TV. And also because I like connecting with people, and I feel like TV still lacks, hasn't got a wide range of presenters that aren't men who can connect with people, mainly women. So my audience is women-led, and I want to talk about like contraception and abortion and periods, all this kind of stuff. And you never see that on TV, really, in a capacity that how I would do it. So if anyone out here wants to work with me, let me know.
Form an orderly queue afterwards, okay?
I think on that, Grace, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice, because I think for what you do online every day makes you a kind of authority on a number of subjects, which is why you did that, you know, the cleaning doc on BBC Three and the sort of Instagrammable pets thing. I think with your understanding and your sort of your close proximity to Instagram and understanding what those sort of trends makes you or someone like you from the internet the person to do that story, rather than actually like a traditional talent who you kind of brief and say, okay, here's what you need to say. You're hosting this show now, and you've got to be interested in this thing. So I think it's all about. I think any talent is used best when it kind of comes from the heart or their own expertise, and I think that's what you need to tap into.
Yeah. And Jay, what about what's it meant for the talent you've worked with who've made that crossover?
Well, I'll hop on to what Jodie said. I think you're incredibly creative because part of the creativity isn't just the stories you're telling, but the system that you've created and the two-way conversation that you've built with your very passionate and loyal audience. And so it took TV specifically almost a century to do exactly that, and you've been able to do that in how long?
5 years.
5 years. So I mean, that's incredibly creative work. So
is that a story you see replicated elsewhere? Is that
every place? It's funny that, you know, in another theater, Jeremy Corbyn is speaking right now, and if you look at the people on stage here in the last 2 weeks, we have probably created more watch time, viewed minutes, and no disrespect to Jeremy, but more watch time, eyeballs watching the content that we've created in the last 2 weeks than he has probably had in his entire career. And that's not to be smug. That data backs that up. And so yeah, I think we're thinking of it, and we're thinking of developing content and cultivating talent and truly at service to an audience that is active every single day. And so when we call it, what is this, the revolution? I mean, we're in the midst of it, a talent revolution, and two of the folks are on stage today.
Fantastic. Louise, your part of your remit is actually to go and find people who might not even be out there already creating, because actually trying to reflect that whole voice of Scotland. So what do you find is their motivation for actually kind of even dipping the toe in the water in this space?
Well, I think the social, which is we started that completely on social media, so it's short form, it's on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. For a while, didn't come anywhere near a BBC platform, but because we had the kind of BBC brand behind it, that was still really attractive for a lot of short form creators. So we were finding a lot of people who were kind of, you know, not massive already, but had a sort of like a small following. And I think there's a lovely creative space actually where you get somebody who's really passionate, got really, you know, great character, great confidence on camera, but then you kind of compare them up with people from organisations like the BBC who've got heritage and storytelling, who we've got kit, we can support them, we can build their skills. And that was really attractive for a lot of the young content creators that we started working with. And actually for us, they were kind of individually doing, you know, varying levels of success on their own channels. But as we brought them together in an amalgam, we brought them together onto one channel, the social, that meant that they all started kind of getting exposed to each other's audiences. So by virtue of that, everyone kind of won really. The social grew a bigger audience. Each of those individuals got more eyeballs on their pieces. And actually brilliantly for us, they started collaborating. And that was really nice to see as well. So I think there's a really big opportunity just generally when creative people start working together.
Just nurturing and growing.
Yeah, just being in each other's company and sort of sharing ideas. And what I've seen with developing some pilots for the new channel is when you put some of these people who are brilliant on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or wherever they are, making a good successful career for themselves. But when you put them together with a production company or a bunch of people from TV who want to work differently, then brilliant things can happen. You start coming up with actually like the new formats for channel that can actually have a proper multi-platform life as well.
Great, okay, well look, believe it or not, we're halfway through already, so please, if you haven't already submitted questions, do that. I haven't been told the app has fallen over, so keep going at that as well, and don't forget the poll as well. Now, panel, we're halfway through, which means that we should get into the nitty-gritty, really, which is this big old chestnut of, you've got millions of views online, can you just bring them over to my channel, please, because I'd like some young people and millions of views. So let's talk about that, because we've already, you've already implied that doesn't work. And it isn't just a question of picking up, a big online following and bringing it across. So Jay, talk us through that kind of thought process at Whistle Sport. I mean, how much do you use data? When you're thinking about commissioning, what's your thought process there?
Yeah, so we try to bring data as close to the development process as possible, and in many cases, have it affect the very thing we create. One way we think about the way we produce content, and specifically with creators or online influencers, we're really stuck on this word influencer, by the way, which I think...
Oh yeah, should we just talk about that? We had a little chat last night, and this is, if you take nothing away from this session, this might be a useful thing. So let's just talk about this word influencer. Yeah. Sure. Tell us your views on it.
Oh, well, it's a very loaded word. To me, it actually sounds very prestigious, right? Like we as creators online influence an audience, but it's kind of seen as a pejorative in the industry. And people don't really know what to call this next era, whether it's a creator or influencer, vlogger. Really what they are simply storytellers. Yeah, I like that we've spent a lot of time in China in the last 6 months. They call them KOLs, key opinion leaders. Not really a real sticky term, but really we're storytellers, we're producers. And I don't know, I would love to hear Grace and Dan's point of view on the term influencer, because they get hit with it much more than I do. I
don't mind being called an influencer, because I know that I influence people and I'm very proud of what I influence. But I feel like the media and traditional like TV and all that kind of stuff, they have made the word like a dirty word. Like if you're an influencer, oh, you're just an influencer. And it's very much like we're all dickheads, but we're not. So that's the vibe that I get. So I don't mind it, but I feel like it's like a bad word. But then I don't know what else to call. I don't know what I am, to be honest. So I don't mind it, but I feel like it is seen as like, oh, a bit of a dirty word.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's, the way I see it is they see it that all we do is influence people to do things in terms of selling, pushing views and stuff like that. That's not what we do. We create, we make content. Like, influence is a good thing for you because you influence your ideology and what you preach almost. Yeah. And that's a good way to use the word influencer, not in the terms of just pushing products and views. That's not what we're there for.
so it's genuinely look at me, see who I am, call me what I am, not give me a blanket term because I'm online and I've come up online. Yeah, is the thing. So Grace, just picking up on that then, what do you see when you look back at the TV industry? I mean, do you see commitment to what you're wanting to do? Do you see people wanting to take risks, or are they just paying lip service to that because they know you've got a great following, you've got a really engaged, predominantly female-led audience, and they just want that?
I find the TV world very difficult to navigate because they never tell you what they're exactly looking for. So then you go to loads of meetings.
Everyone in the audience is going, yep, we feel your pain.
Every week I'm like, honestly, I think last year I was in a meeting a week with a production company or a channel, and it was driving me insane. And you can't give the same idea to everyone as well. So I'm like trying to think of all these ideas. And I'm like, oh my God. And it's very overwhelming. And I think that it's never like an honest conversation of, okay, we want an idea like this, let's do it together. It's very much like, we've got this idea, can you jump on it, hoping to get views? Or I bring an idea and they're like, we're not really sure on it. Or it gets close to being commissioned and they're like, nah, the commissioner's left, and you're like, great. So I find it very difficult to navigate, especially because the subjects I want to talk about are hard hitting, but very, very like, women skewed, because that's what I care about. And when you've got these men at the top, they don't understand that I want to talk about periods and the pill and, you know, stuff that women really are interested in, and can help educate the masses as well. So I just find it a bit of a minefield, because I know that I'm a good presenter, and I know that the idea that I have or they have, I can execute, but things just take so long. And when you're in our world, we have an idea and it's done the next day.
Yeah.
So we're used to working very fast paced, getting this morning calling, oh, can you come on the show tomorrow? Because very much, very, very quick. Whereas TV seems to be so long. And then you get a call and they're like, oh, you can do this. And you're like, no, I'm out of the country, I'm on a job. So it's very difficult to like, keep the momentum going.
And from your experience, is that mostly about sort of it's lost in translation, there's not a whole load of cynicism and kind of rhetoric, or is it's actually more about we just don't know how to connect with each other because we come from different worlds? Or,
yeah.
Or is there a pile of the other as well?
I think it's a bit of that, and I think people are really scared to take risks. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm fully aware that getting like a new presenter in and like new talent is a risk, but I just think, why don't you take it? If you take it, you might get your numbers up. So, yeah. You know, and you might connect with the audience that you want to connect with. It's just very difficult. And I think that they also don't like working with influencers because they think that we're going to be shit or we're difficult to work with. So it's very difficult.
Okay.
Very difficult.
Interesting. So Dan, I mean, bluntly, are you offered good enough opportunities to make you want to get into more mainstream TV?
I guess no.
There we go. Form another orderly queue there as well. Yeah, and do you think, and do you see when you look across the landscape, because there are people coming in from lots of different areas into mainstream TV, do you think that folks from the online world get treated any differently, better or worse?
I think the idea of having a risk attached to having an influencer involved in TV is interesting, because we already have that background and portfolio of work. Like, our channels are our portfolio of work. It's almost less of a risk, or should be seen less of a risk than, say, the person who just won the most recent reality TV show. They won't have that portfolio and experience already ready to go that you can physically see. They're almost more of a risk than we are.
But I think that's because I feel like when you go into TV, they don't want you to have an opinion or a say on what you're trying to like talk about. And reality TV stars are easier to mould. And I think they can be like, here's this topic, this is what you want to say. Whereas we're like, we can't talk about that, that's against our morals. Yeah. We're very much like, this is what we want to do, and here's how we're going to do it, and we'll obviously negotiate. And I think that's where the issue is that it has to be a working relationship. Whereas I think sometimes in TV, they want to take like control over it. And we don't want that. We want to work together and develop something together.
I think
There's
also
a lot of nodding across the panel, yeah.
The whole kind of influencer tag, I think, is a huge barrier to getting anything away on TV. Like, the way, like, when I started, like last year at Studio 71, I was thinking, like, are we actually going to be taken seriously as a production company? Are we going to be seen as a little digital publisher? And you know, part of the trick is actually, you go in and you talk about, we're working with this brilliant comedian, this is the stuff he's done, and he's, you know, it's a comedian, it's not someone who's, this is a person from the internet, oh, and they're having a go at comedy. It's like, you know, what they can do is, you know, if they're funny and they can produce their own material, they've got the balls to kind of go and do things totally off their own back, and it's our role to kind of help support them and then shape them and pitch them. That's the kind of conversation we're having. And I think that we've just, you saw in that VT we just showed a guy called Alex Steele, who's a blacksmith. He has a YouTube channel. He's basically like a hobbyist blacksmith. He's managed to build a career by sharing his sort of passion for smithing things on YouTube, which has funded his career. And we took him to History, who have, you know, like the History Channel, who have like, an older demographic. They'd be totally uninterested in working with a YouTuber. They don't care about the fact he's 19 years old and totally self-taught, but the fact that he's an expert, you know, he makes basically weapons from history. You follow his whole like long process of doing it over days and days and days of making it. Tells a story at the end of it. He chops up some watermelons and things. What else are you going to do with a sword? But you know, they were confident enough to put in like an episode order of 18.5 hours because they recognised him as an expert and thought he's a brilliant British voice for us. The fact that he's a YouTuber doesn't matter. They're not going to try and ride on that and think that's going to suddenly change their audience or punt more viewers over. It's about, I think, online. It's another, at its most base level. If you're a producer and you're not looking online to try and find the next talent, it feels like a real missed opportunity.
And who wouldn't want to know how to make weapons from history?
Exactly.
Either? I mean, added bonus as well. So, Louise, look, as broadcasters sat on this panel then, what can TV companies do to address some of the things that these guys have just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying about portfolio, Dan, is absolutely right. And, you know, somebody who comes to you who's got their own ideas, who we know can present, who can talk to a camera, who can edit, who can, you know, tell a story. I mean, that really should be a gift for a company. But that's going to take a bit of a mind shift, really, for traditional broadcasters like the BBC, because, you know, we like editorial control and we have editorial guidelines that we need to adhere to. And when we set up a production, we like to make sure that everything is going to, it's a risk thing. We want to make sure that everything is going to be done to our standards and guidelines. So there's definitely a kind of shift there in finding a way to be able to do all the things that we stand up for in the BBC, trust and quality and everything, but make sure we get the best out of people like Dan and Grace, who come with all those added things. So I think there's a kind of a slight shift there in kind of mentality. And I know a lot of people that do have that and want to make it happen. I think the speed of production, having come from the social myself, where we would come up with an idea in the morning, we'd have it out, like, you know, I think the fastest one we did was 2 hours. You know, we worked with somebody, we co-created something. It was about the snow that had hit Scotland, and it was out by the end of the day, and it was getting millions of views, and we were like, that feels really, really exciting, kind of moving at that pace. So TV is much slower because we have to go through a lot of processes. Also, I think roundabout talent is when we start working with somebody who's been making their own stuff for a long time, and we say, right now we want you to make something for iPlayer or television, and then the amount of paperwork that surrounds that can be quite sort of daunting and off-putting for a lot of people who've just been used to kind of being so in control of their own content, being able to do things really quickly. So I think there's a few challenges in there. I don't think they're unsurmountable, but I do think we need to kind of come up with some ways of tackling them so that we just get the best out of everything. We get that really good creative mix, and we come up with like new innovative formats that can maybe move a little bit faster.
So dare I say, so it's neither one side going over to the other, it's actually finding a new space.
That's how I feel with the new channel.
Alice, I think what you're hearing is generally the traditional television world doesn't know how to use the influence of the influencers, right? And even though the influencers, I'm sorry to use that term.
I was about to say, I thought you didn't like that term.
Would love the prestige of being on a major linear network. The linear network does not necessarily know how to pull the most value out of them. Where we have found success is to develop and produce a series with creators, and we'll put them in a series as a presenter. And then, as we're marketing the series, we'll go back to their normal form of communication with their audience and be able to activate that audience and ideally drive them to wherever we're trying to drive them to. And that is ultimately the best way to use the influence of the influencer.
So that's a good piece of advice. That takes me on to my next question. Then we're going to come to questions from the audience as well. So I guess, Jay, that's your piece of advice for the audience here. Just coming around the panel in turn, if there was a piece of advice and or a personal bugbear that you'd just like to air with this TV exec audience here, what would your piece of advice be for them about how to tap into the incredible creative and kind of eye-catching world online? Louise, coming to you.
I would say definitely look, beyond the numbers. Just because somebody maybe only has like a few thousand followers, a few thousand views, and they're just starting out, doesn't mean to say that they don't have an important voice. And I think actually, tapping into the niche can be just as important as kind of going for sort of an all-round kind of presenter type person. I think that for me is really important, because the idea of community I think is a really important space to get into. You know, we're in this world where we're competing, you know, with kind of Amazon, Netflix and everything, but actually, you know, if we can start listening to what particularly younger audiences are talking about and care about and reflect them and do that with people that actually genuinely kind of care about what they're talking about, I think that's really good place to start.
Great. Jodie?
I think it's recognising them not just as talent and, you know, someone you can drop into a show to host it. It's playing out to where their strengths are. Some, you know, there's a lot of people online who would just love to be a presenter. Others want to be a producer or a filmmaker or some other kind of storyteller. So I think, we discovered recently a couple of female comedians on Facebook that we've now making a pilot with for BBC Comedy. And that's about like working out what their sort of strengths are, what kind of support we can give as a production company to enable them to make the kind of best content, and deal with all the lovely BBC paperwork, so they never have to, you know, have to glance at it. So, so I think it's making it kind of adaptable, because online you don't get one size fits all talent. Everyone's kind of unique.
Talking of unique, Grace, what's your one piece of advice or one personal bugbear you'd like to air?
I feel like the issue is that young people and minorities don't trust traditional media because they're usually fed like propaganda. And I think that instead of just looking at someone's following, it's about, have they got an engaged audience and people that, you know, if we got this person on our channel, are we going to get young people and like think that we're cool again, or they can respect us and listen to us? And I think that's where the key is. I know when I did my BBC Three documentary, people were saying, oh, I watch the BBC now because like Grace is obviously working with them, so that's kind of cool. Because before they were like, I'm not really sure on, do you know what I mean? So I think that sometimes it's about that relationship and what you can both bring to the table, not just, you know, the influencer and the following that person has.
As equals. Okay, and Dan, what's your piece of advice?
I think it's very similar to Grace's. It has to be collaborative. You can't just take the person and put them in the project you want to have views. You need to learn about what the influencer/creator wants to do, and then learn about each other, work off each other's strengths. If you put me in front of, like, if I don't want to just present TV, that's not what I want to do, so that's not what I'm going to do, and it's not going to work on TV, and it's not going to bring those views across. If both people are passionate and it works really well, then that's when the views eventually come in. So it just has to be a collaborative thing where you learn about each other.
Okay, really helpful, really clear takeaway. Okay, talking of helpful, let's see if this screen has got any questions from any of you on here. Okay, the very first thing is, it's not actually on. The second thing is, there's a big login screen. Here we go. Right, okay, so we've got a couple of questions. Thank you very much for bearing with it. Let's have a quick look. Okay, really interesting. Okay. Is casting for online inefficient? Because there's just so much out there. I mean, Jay, you've talked a little bit about volume and things like that. Where do you even start if I'm looking for somebody?
Is casting
online
inefficient?
If I'm scouring the internet, there's oceans of it out there. How do I find the people that...
Not really. No, I think it's very efficient. I think it all depends on what you're looking for. For example, if you're casting for a scripted series, I'm sure you have you have some sort of avatar that you're looking for. If you're casting for an unscripted series, then I imagine you're looking for some type of expertise or a flavor profile. And then there's also companies that can really help you. Whistle Sports has 500, creators in our network that are incredibly active, especially with young males. And so we would be an ideal place to come to produce a series that would include some of these big talent.
Excellent, and there are other talent companies also available. Jodie. So interesting. So there are, if you're really not entirely sure and you don't know about some of this stuff, there are the kind of intermediaries of talent, just as there are for traditional mainstream as well. Okay, so another question then, and specifically this one's coming down towards you, Dan, and Grace, but everyone, which is, does success relate to exciting Generation X skewed outlook, creativity and mighty passion, or does all new and emerging talent have to be young? I'm asking the young people on the panel, or the younger people on the panel. What do you think?
I don't know. I think it depends on the audience, because obviously a lot of people seem to be younger who watch YouTube videos. I don't know. And I think that's why a lot of the talent is coming, like, we're a certain age. Like, when I'm 30 or 40, I don't want to be making YouTube videos, because hopefully by then I'm doing like TV and other stuff. So I think that it's just the way it is right now. But then what I see on TV, I think a lot of people in TV are a lot older than me. So I think sometimes, am I too young to do some of the stuff that I want to do? So I don't really know.
So there's something in there about there is a fit between age, platform, audience. There's a lineup thing. Dan, what do you think? Could you see a world that there's somebody who's much older who's killing it on YouTube with a young audience, or do you think that would just be?
Why not?
But why not? But is there anyone you can point to? Does that happen, or is it really about there's a kind of authenticity that lines up all the way between audience and creator and content?
They have to be relatable, though, don't they?
Yeah.
So a 12-year-old kid's not going to find someone that's 40 relatable, and that's what it is that it's being able to relate to someone, and I think age is a part of that.
And it comes with the demographics of each platform, I guess. Like you said, most people that watch YouTube are under 25, so they're going to find the younger people more relatable. And then the people that are on TV are generally much older, but their audience is much older, so they find them more relatable. Yep. If everyone was watching everything, maybe you would see that shift. And then there would be people that are older that are making channels that are successful.
OK, Jodie, what's your thought?
I think we can't ignore TV's obsession with young as well, and young talent, and, you know, all the conversations you have, like, can't use them, they're too old. You know, that's something that isn't meant, yeah, we all kind of recognise that is never in an email, but often discussed conversation that happens. I think it's naturally online talent, it's where the younger viewers are, it's where the younger talent are. But I think as it kind of matures, you will get older talent. I mean, we're working with, you know, people on our network who are, you know, late 30s, 40s as well. So I think it's exclusively. Imagine.
Outrageous. Outrageous.
I also think, though, that the issue is that young people think and act a certain way, and older people have certain opinions that just do not align with what young people think. And I think that's also an issue as well. Like, morals play a massive part in what young people are going to watch. So if you're watching a TV channel and you find out someone on there is I don't know, slightly racist, that's going to cause a whole issue. And I think that people like people like us, because we also align with what they're thinking. It's like a whole generational thing. I think that's also quite telling, because, like, the younger generation care about Love Island, but also care about politics. So it's trying to get people that also can fit into what their idea of being, like, a good person is, or a presenter. I think that plays a massive part.
OK, so I want to move on because we're going to run out of time. Quick question that's come in, which is, who are your favourite YouTube personalities? Who do you enjoy watching? And you can't say yourself in this. And you can't say Grace, Dan, OK? And vice versa.
Oh, is this for us?
Yeah, this is for you. This is a question that's coming from the audience who want to know. OK, so Dan, who's your favourite YouTube personality other than yourself or Grace?
I watch a lot of professional gaming, so people at the minute are playing a lot of a game called Fortnite, and there's a big professional scene around there.
Never heard of it.
Which is very, very similar to watching your favourite football team.
Yeah.
So competitive gaming is what I'm into at the moment.
OK, we had this, by the way, we had this conversation last night where I fessed up. I have a 12-year-old who just does nothing but gaming, and I've had to get over the fact that he watches other people play games online, much like other people go to watch football matches at the weekend. I'm OK with it now. Grace, who's your favourite personality?
Other than myself, and I'm joking. I watch a lot of, like, spoken word and, like, poetry. I actually don't watch a lot of fashion and beauty videos. I think it's kind of weird to do that when you're in the industry. I just find it weird. And I actually watch a lot of documentaries on drugs. I don't know why. But I watch a lot of shorts on, like, drugs or prostitution. Or
so if you're going to give people one here, sorry to interrupt, if you're going to give people here one name to go and check out.
OK, wait, OK. Come back to me.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Jodie, of the 1,300 talented online people that you look at, who's your favourite? Sorry, I mean, who are you watching online?
There's a guy we're working with called Nico Omerlan, and he's really new. He's only got 200,000 subscribers, but he's got like comedic talent like I've not seen in ages. And he's really exciting. He does a kind of like, it's almost like a Louis Theroux style investigations, but really comedic, where he kind of goes undercover and embeds himself. Like he did his mixed race, and he basically infiltrated the EDL and got them to accept him as one of their own.
I saw that!
He's fucking incredible.
Yeah, I'm into that.
And I think that's, if you look at the stuff he's doing, and it will sort of totally wash away any feelings that YouTubers are just vloggers.
Say his name again, because people didn't get it.
You can't have him. It's Nico Omerlan, he's called.
Okay. Thank you very much. Louise?
Oh, it's really hard for me to say. It's terrible because, you know, obviously I'm in commissioning and, you know, there's so many people that I've worked with that are absolutely brilliant. I mean, I like funny stuff. I like comedy. There's a really brilliant Scottish guy called Marley13. I'll give him a big shout out because he's absolutely brilliant.
Okay, well done. Thank you for not taking a pass on that one today. Finally from you.
Oh, there's a channel I love. It's called Primitive Technology on YouTube. And this guy just goes out into the middle of nowhere and builds like huts in actual primitive technology, and like a bow and arrow, and he doesn't talk. And it's really, really fascinating, and the videos are really long, but you find yourself watching the entire thing.
Fantastic, fantastic.
And he's on our network.
He is, okay.
Oh, okay. There's some good cross-promotion. Okay.
Good intro.
That's very good. We've got time for one final question, which I just wanted to, again, because it's something we've previously talked about between us, but there is a difference, isn't there? We talked about a younger audience on YouTube. We talked about a more established, older audience on TV. There's also something that's different, very different about the platforms. So I just wondered, particularly, I guess, to Grace and Dan as creators on YouTube, which is that sense you've got young audience. What about responsibility? Because it's not always a pleasant environment. It's not always a tidy or we talked about being a clean house sometimes on YouTube. What's your feeling, all of you, about that kind of difference around the responsibility for the platform provider? And by the way, when I'm talking about just as much about TV as I am about YouTube, but to their audience there, because there's a whole world of freedom, and often there are young folks in that space. Dan, what do you think about that?
It's something I realised quite quickly when you start meeting the people that watch your videos. I very quickly realised they were very young, so I not changed my content. I just thought about it more. So what kind of games I would play, the language, the messages in the videos, and realising that whatever I said, those kids would probably absorb it and almost preach it, which is crazy. But I think if you're just a nice person, then you don't really have much to worry about.
And do you see that? Do you see that the kind of? Do you see much difference between the TVs, the actual platform providers, their kind of view of their responsibilities to the audience and online, or do you think that they're very comparable?
I'd say they're comparable. It just depends on the content, I guess. You make content for whoever's watching it. So if you had something that was more about extreme topics, you'd cater that content to that, if that makes sense. Whereas mine is predominantly kids, so that's how I probably have exactly the same rules and regulations for myself as BBC Children's do. Yeah. We know that because you've worked with us as well. So, okay, good. We're going to run out of time, so I won't pass that one round to the rest of the panel. I'm just looking for the poll. Okay, so the very good news. Thank you very much of those for taking part in the poll. And I always like to think we've made a permanent mark. You have made a permanent mark on the Edinburgh TV Festival because it was 100% yes to the fact that we should be showcasing the very best of online talent here at this TV festival. We will pass that back to the organisers, and we have advisory committee people in the audience here as well, so your voice has been heard. Can you join me this morning and thanking our very talented and experienced panel. Thank you to all of you. Well done. Thank you to you for making the right choice of session first thing this morning, and we wish you a great day at the festival. Thank you.